There was bees at Chase Field. There was not a lot of bats from the Dodgers. Let's talk about it. Let's get Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code LockedOnMLB in all lowercase for a first deposit match up to $100. This is the daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us where we find podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. And if you want to become an everyday, or have to do is listen or watch every day, which can be made easier by subscribing and get notified when episodes are ready for you. If this is your first time listening or watching, welcome. My name is Vince Samperio, joined by my co-host Jeff Snyder. Jeff and I are both lifelong Dodger fans that have covered the team for quite a while now, a lot of that time being this podcast here. We've watched a lot of Dodger games, and we've watched a lot of Dodger games that have gone this late, but not because of the reason that it went this late on Tuesday night. But yeah, we're gonna talk about the Dodgers and talk about some other stuff too. So yeah, Jeff, there was essentially a 2-hour B delay, hour 55. And then the Dodgers played, and it was not like Monday night where they struck out 0 times. Mookie Betts started off the game with a strikeout. The Dodgers ended up striking out 8 more times after that. They did put up 3 runs, but only one of them was via an actual batted ball by the Dodgers.
Yeah, and even that was a sac fly and an unearned run because it was the Manfred runner. So yeah, the Dodgers, they just didn't get the offense going. And, it's hard for me to be too upset about this game. My everydayers know my standard philosophy is I try not to get too upset about regular season games anyway. And this one, like the Bees, really, you've got the delay, you've got the unplanned bullpen game, you've got a lineup that was set for a left-handed starter. And that makes tough decisions like, okay, well, now it's a bullpen game. So how long do we pretend Chris Taylor is currently a major league hitter and let him stay in when there's not the left-handed starter on the mound, and just a lot of different things. And I don't know if the Bees really had any impact on the Dodgers bats or if it was just one of those games, because even the best teams have games like this where you just don't get the hits when you need them, can't get it going, whatever it is. And they struck out, like you said, 9 times, but 9 times in 10 innings when I think they had 6 strikeouts in the first 4 innings. So, it wasn't a terrible strikeout game. It was just, didn't get a lot of hard hit balls and, couldn't get the big hits when they needed them. And ultimately, yeah, I mean, this is why even the best teams lose 50 or 60 games a year, because baseball's hard and some nights you just don't have it.
Yeah, 5 of those 9 strikeouts came from Betts and Ohtani, which very uncharacteristic for Betts this season, and for Ohtani after we talked about what everybody's strikeout rates were yesterday. So, the bright spot, Landon Knack, the Jordan Montgomery was supposed to start for the Diamondbacks. It ended up becoming a bullpen game for them. He'll now pitch on Wednesday. And the Dodgers, I would imagine Knack hadn't started his full warm-up yet.
He said he was fully warmed up and had to re-warm up. So, yeah, that was he said that was the reason they pulled him at 64 pitches, because he had basically had a full warm-up, and so it was the workload of 90 pitches or whatever.
Yeah, so there you go. So Landon Knack ended up going 5 innings, gave up 1 run, and continued a string of, like I said, efficient outings. He's had only 2 strikeouts, but he hasn't been too much of a strikeout guy so far. 1 walk, 4 hits. So it was not the best start, but 5 innings, 1 run is very good. Like you mentioned, on 64 pitches, probably could have went deeper into the game, but he did have the delay that caused him to warm up twice. And the Dodgers just weren't in place to have a bullpen game. Realistically, if they had maybe in 1 extra arm or somebody else that could go some length, maybe they would have pivoted that way.
Yeah, I mean, the main illustration of that fact is the fact that Nabil Krismat pitched the 9th and the 10th innings because Evan Phillips was unavailable. He's pitched a lot. This would have been 5 times in 8 days, and they're just not willing to go that far. And yeah, you can quibble, well, then why did they use him in a four-run game yesterday? But, you know, we saw just a week or two ago, like, okay, well, now Evan Phillips is rusty because they didn't get him into games, and you never know. Guys have to work, and at that point, Phillips had already gotten up, warmed up. So, you know, there's a lot of things you quibble with, but ultimately, in the end, Gus Varlam was the only guy who was available and wasn't used in this game, and hopefully, the bullpen picture doesn't get murkier. Joe Kelly fielding a bunt tweaked his groin a little bit, and the trainer came out. Kelly stayed in the game, but Dave Roberts after the game kind of said, well, we'll see how he feels tomorrow. They already have Ryan Brazier on the IL, and sounds like, you know, that is a much more serious injury than we originally realized. That, you know, it was actually, he heard it running, and they're thinking it's going to be a long-term thing. Hopefully Kelly's groin feels just fine, and hopefully I never have to talk about Joe Kelly's groin again. But it was, yeah, I mean, the Dodgers, this was game 8 of 9 in a row with no off days. And as good as the starting pitching has been, that will, like, I think 9 days straight is going to tax any bullpen. And not that this bullpen was necessarily taxed in this game, but we saw the effects of not everybody's available. And when it goes to extra innings, sometimes Nabil Krismat is what you have available. And, you know, there's questions about whether Nabil Krismat is a true major league quality starter or pitcher or not. So, you know, that's what was available.
Yeah, you look at the offense and just the 5 hits. They did have 6 walks. They were 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position. So the struggles overall for the team continue a little bit there. But, you know, you look at the other side, and the Diamondbacks were 2 for 13 with runners in scoring position. They left 10 on base. Dodgers left 9. So it was just not a great offensive performance on either side. It just happened to be that Christian Walker hit the ball over the wall a couple times.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if Chris Taylor is in the starting lineup on Wednesday, because Jordan Montgomery will be the starter, which is why Chris Taylor was in the lineup on Tuesday, because they thought Jordan Montgomery would be the starter. And so Taylor got two at bats, I think. We'll see if he is back in the lineup or not to actually face Jordan Montgomery. But ultimately, yeah, the Dodgers
got the one at bat.
Did he just bat once?
Once he had 0 for 2 at the walk.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, it's that probably does mean they are planning on having Taylor start against Montgomery. Hopefully not in the 7 spot like he was slot in, you know, hopefully batting 9th. But, you know, it's the Dodgers are now 6-2 on this road trip. Obviously, finishing out this series on Wednesday with a win would be really, really, really nice. But even a 6-3 road trip, you can't complain too much about. But obviously, winning this series is the goal, and hopefully, you know, I think this team's too good for the bats to be shut down 2 games in a row. Jordan Montgomery is a good pitcher, but I don't think he's as good at pitching as the Dodgers are at hitting overall. So hopefully they can get the job done, and the starting pitching steps up and wins them a ball game.
Yeah, Chris Taylor, somebody we're going to talk about next. Based off something that happened with the Houston Astros, we'll get into that. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. Mother's Day is coming up, and you want to make your mom smile, so why don't you give her a gift with DoorDash? Select from hundreds of expertly crafted bouquets to the best of tech toys to self-care essentials and more, delivered right to her door. It's never too late to show your mom love this Mother's Day with DoorDash. It's actually pretty early right now, so make sure to lock it in, get it ready. Maybe even send it to yourself and hand it to your mom if you're going to be there with her. Either way, DoorDash can help you out. They got the savings. If you get the Dash Pass membership, you'll save with the $0 delivery fee and reduced service fees on eligible orders from Dash Pass merchants that meet the minimum subtotal. Other fees, including service fee, apply. Terms also apply. Get all your Mother's Day gifts all in one place. and get 50% off your next order up to $15 when you spend $15+ on your next flour, convenience, grocery, or retail order now with code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB. Order using DoorDash today. Terms apply. Today's episode is also brought to you by PrizePicks. Baseball season's underway, and there's some daily fantasy sports that can help you get in on the action and win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks. All you got to do is download the PrizePicks app. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. And it's very easy. You just got to pick a player and the stat that they provide you with, more or less. And you got to pick at least two players, up to 6 players. And boom, you can, decide how much you want to put on and see how much you could win and get a little skin in the game. So make sure to go to PrizePicks and check out the #1 fantasy sports app right now. Download that app and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB in all lowercase with the PrizePicks app for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can become an everydayer by listening or watching every day. You can go to YouTube and find Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 2 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network that bring you all the can't-miss news, analysis, and reactions without all the screaming you might see on some other channels. So go check those out on YouTube, streaming 24/7. Remember, you can become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers and text directly with us. Get our thoughts, reactions, and any breaking news throughout the day, throughout the week. And then you can ask us questions if you want to. And we got one question from a Locked On Dodgers insider in relation to some news from the Astros. Jose Abreu was optioned to the minor leagues to work on his swing, get his head right. He's had a really rough start to his season. And Jeff, I think someone wanted to relate this a little bit to Chris Taylor. You're on mute.
Sorry. This is our buddy Pat Dwyer, who is one of our insiders and also our Japanese connection, because he knows a lot about Japanese television and whatnot. But this one, he just asked, do we think that Chris Taylor would accept an option to the minors like Jose Abreu did with the Astros? And I guess the first part of the answer is I don't know for sure if they could, even if he would accept it, because the rules on options is once you have 5 years of service time, you can't be optioned without your permission. But even with your permission, you still only get the 3 option years total. And one of the reasons Jose Abreu was able to be optioned is because he signed out of Cuba, went straight to the big leagues. So he never spent time in the minor leagues with the White Sox when he first came up. And so he still has option years available. So the only hurdle there was him being willing to accept an option. With Chris Taylor, it's kind of hard. I'd have to dig through newspaper accounts probably to find out for sure, because Fangraphs and other sites, once a guy has 5 years of service time, they just put NA on the options available because, he's got 5 years. So it doesn't matter how many options he has available. And so I don't know for sure. I think Chris Taylor is out of options because he originally got called up to the Mariners in 2014. I don't think that counted as an option year because it looks like he was a non-roster invite to the Mariners spring training in 2014 and wasn't added to the 40-man roster until he was actually called up. And then he stayed in the big leagues the rest of that year. So they didn't have to use an option year that year. But then 2015 and 2016, he definitely used up an option year. He spent time in the minors in both of those seasons. And then 2017, you remember, he went to spring training with the Dodgers and had a good spring training, but didn't make the team out of camp. He started the season in the minors and only played 10 games there, I think it was. But I think looking at when he got called up, it was, 10 games. But when he actually got called up, I think he would have already been in the minors long enough that did count as an option year. And that's kind of the gray area that I'm not totally sure, because there is leeway and it might be 20 days. And I don't remember what the CBA said in 2017. So I'm only 80% sure that 2017 counted as an option year for Taylor. If it didn't, then yeah, I mean, the only time he's spent in the minor leagues since then was rehab assignments. And so he would have an option year available if 2017 didn't count. But it seems like 2017 probably did count just based on when he actually got called up. And so that's kind of the first part of that question. But then we could dig into, do we think that Taylor would accept an option?
Yeah, my one word answer is no, and not for, it's not Chris Taylor is not a team player or whatever, blah blah. Jose Abreu is having a rough time on offense. He hasn't had the best time on defense, and he's an older player. He might realize like, hey, you know what, I or whatever. He might be feeling something. Whereas Taylor, I don't know. It's one of those things where we found out he tried to rework his swing this offseason to get back to 2017, 2018. And it didn't really work out. And now he's trying to kind of fix it on the go. And, we've advocated for a sore wrist or something to put him on the IL, to send him to Arizona to start, working on that swing. And this is essentially what that would be. But not to say Chris Taylor isn't humble or anything like that. I just don't think he would accept an assignment.
Yeah, and that is definitely a possibility, because it's the question is it something that could be fixed in the minor leagues, or his chance? I think if his chances of fixing it were better in the minor leagues than in the big leagues, he might, but it is hard to say because we don't really know exactly what the issue is, and we don't know if it's even fixable. And so if it's not fixable, well, why would you go to the minor leagues? And I don't even know how the pay works when I guess it's probably a guaranteed contract, and so it wouldn't affect him financially. But ultimately, I don't know that hitting in AAA is going to necessarily fix this, help him figure this out. But that's kind of where I come down, where if he thought that going to the minors would help him figure it out, I think he would accept it. But I think that's kind of the big if of, would he actually think that would be helpful?
Yeah. Well, yeah, going to AAA, I don't think would help at all, because a bad swing, he'll still have results down there. Like if he goes down to AAA right now, the way he's swinging, I feel like he'd still have good results. Jose Abreu is going to the complex basically, like if Chris Taylor went to Camelback and just started working out with whatever rookie level guys, or if there's even anybody there. So I think that would be beneficial to him, and it would make sense for him to do that. But it's also a matter of, you're still a major league competitor, and if you're Chris Taylor, if you have an option of not going, not taking that, regardless of helping the team or whatever else, it's still, slightly, humiliating might be too strong of a word, but maybe like, a lesser version of that. And it's just a matter of, he still brings defensive value, even though at that point, the Dodgers don't necessarily need it. They have a lot of guys that can play shortstop and middle infield and outfield at this point that are hitting much better. So, yeah, I still think it's going to come down to, he's going to have something that comes up sore. But the other part, too, is who do you call up if he does go back down? I mean, obviously Vargas is there, but, do you bring up Vargas and not give him too many ABs? I don't know.
Yeah, I guess Andre Lipsius would be another option. He's hitting well in AAA. I did look it up, and it looks like maybe Taylor might have an option available if he was willing to accept it, because it is 20 days, and the 2017 season started on April 3rd. He got called up on April 19th. So 2017 probably didn't count as an option year, and so it is probably a possibility. And I wonder, with the context of the question being Jose Abreu, there's been plenty of good things said about Abreu today, about, team player, unselfish, blah, 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 blah. I think there's ways, one way of looking at it would be the humiliating or something along those lines. But I think it also could easily be sold as this guy is so committed to being the best he can be that he's willing to do whatever it takes, even if it means going back to Camelback Ranch for a couple of weeks and, getting his swings in the summer league games or extended spring or whatever. I think it could be sold. And the more I think about it, like, I don't know, like you said, it's hard to know who they would call up instead. But ultimately, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he would accept it.
I mean, if there was one guy I would think on this Dodgers roster that would accept it, it would probably be Chris Taylor's probably in that top 2 or 3. But I don't think realistically, I don't think we're gonna get the chance to learn if he would, because I don't think they're gonna do that. But
that might be true.
Yeah. So, all right. The uniforms in Major League Baseball, which have been chastised and ridiculed and everything in between, are likely changing based on a memo that was sent from the Players Association that somebody got a hold of. So we're going to talk about that. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. Monopoly Go is a game that you can download from the Google Play or App Store, and it's for your competitive side. We're going to talk about it right now because you can team up with your friends for time tournaments. You can work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. There's unique stickers you can trade with friends to compete albums for big prizes. There's new playing pieces that you can travel the boards with. There's hilarious emojis for taunting your friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. And Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges, including their own mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So if you're competitive and you want to play around with your friends, get off the bench and go download Monopoly Go right now. It's free on the Google Play or App Store. Game on. I want to thank you for being in every day, or if you are one. If you're not one, all you have to do is listen or watch every single day, or as close to every day as possible. And if you want to go beyond the podcast, become a Locked On Dodgers insider, all you got to do is go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers, and I have direct texting access and breaking news and all that sent directly to you. All right, Jeff. So, we hadn't heard about the uniforms in a while, other than the occasional ripped pants or the fact that a lot of teams haven't received some of their alternate or other or older City Connect uniforms. And then it was found out over the weekend that MLB and the powers that be are going to try to fix things. It said by the start of the 2025 season in a memo obtained from the Players Association memo. So it could be before then, it could be by then. They're going to fix the names on the back of the jerseys to have the bigger lettering. They're going to work on fixing the grays, matching tops and bottoms, the sweat kind of sticking into the jersey and giving people multiple shades of gray, and addressing any other player or fan complaints that may have arrived. But beyond that part specifically, there was a lot of other stuff in this memo that kind of passed the buck on the blame.
Yeah, it is. Well, passing the buck. It's basically the memo says this is a Nike issue. It says, and so there's a memo from the Players Union, the MLBPA, to their members, to the players. And it says, this has been entirely a Nike issue. At its core, what has happened here is that Nike was innovating something that didn't need to be innovated. And the interesting part is what they're doing is they're absolving Fanatics, and Fanatics is a partner with the union. Fanatics has licensing deals with the players. I think Fanatics even does baseball cards now. I know at some point they were buying tops or somehow
they have tops.
And so, all of that licensing is done through the union. And so there are ulterior motives for the union to say, don't blame fanatics for this. But even beyond that, that doesn't mean it's not true. Just because there's incentives for them to say it doesn't make it untrue. And it does seem like it's Nike's design. Fanatics just made the uniforms that Nike told them to make. They've been made in the same warehouse, the same factory that they've been made at for the last several years. It was Nike's new design. And the good news about this, again, this isn't even official. This is a leaked memo from the union. And so we don't even have official word that, yes, the uniforms will be fixed. So we definitely don't know when, definitely don't know what things they will fix, if they will just go back to, the union saying Nike innovated something that doesn't need to be innovated, kind of implies that maybe they're just going to go back to what they had before, because it's not like players were complaining about the uniforms and they looked good. Going back to the bigger names, the reason they went to smaller names is because they had to move the MLB logo down farther on the back of the jersey, because they had the thinner placket, the narrower placket. And so there was no longer room for the logo above the seam. And so they had to put it below the seam, which then leaves, more empty space above the logo and less room for the names. So if they're going to go back to the bigger names, it seems like they probably have to move the logo. And if they're moving the logo back to where it used to be, that means that they probably have to go back to the wider placket. And if they're going back to the wider placket, that fixes the issue of the uniform splitting in the middle of a D instead of between the O and the D on the Dodgers jerseys, because that was also because of the narrower placket. And so it seems like, since most of the issues are like the union said, innovating where they didn't need to innovate, maybe the answer is as simple as, well, let's go back to what was working for the last many years before this, because we didn't have these road uniforms, the gray uniforms, they look really bad when a guy gets sweaty, and just normal amounts of baseball stuff. Baseball, it's an athletic endeavor, and guys sweat doing that. And you see it, every guy in a road uniform looks like he's pitching at Old Arlington Stadium out in the 105-degree heat and 90% humidity in Texas outdoors. When even it's it's 84 degrees here, and this guy looks like he just got a Gatorade bottle thrown on him. That's how wet his jersey looks.
Yeah. All in all, innovating where it didn't need innovating, it could have been figured out a long time ago, whether it was Nike pushing for it, whether it was MLB pushing for it and then now kind of stepping back, whatever the case is. What we do know is that the players weren't advocating for it, and everything they had about the positive reactions they got from the All-Star jerseys, those are jerseys they wore one day or 2 days at the most. The jerseys probably did feel light and probably did feel great, especially in the All-Star game when it's usually in July. And, it wasn't that hot in Seattle last year, but it was warm enough. And, they probably did feel good. But that doesn't mean that, and those jerseys had so much different colors and everything, you couldn't really tell. And, they're supposed to look different. They're the All-Star stuff. Whereas the everyday stuff is, nobody likes change, especially change that doesn't end up being positive. And that's the one thing here is that, we didn't hear really any positive things from players or fans in regards to the uniforms, pretty much at all.
Yeah, we did hear some positive things, but that's another thing that kind of indicates that the union, despite having ulterior motives, isn't necessarily
after that campaign
because it was Nike athletes, guys with Nike sponsorships are the guys who said, "Hey, these are awesome." And so that kind of indicates, oh yeah, this probably was a Nike thing, since they're the ones pushing people to say it's awesome. Speaking of the All-Star jerseys, though, Tyler Kepner wrote a good article about, well, as long as they're fixing this, why don't we fix the other big uniform mistake that Major League Baseball has made recently, which is going away from players wearing their own uniforms in the All-Star game. It's just the last couple of years, they now all wear matching uniforms in the game. And what it used to be is they would wear the matching uniforms on Monday for the home run derby and all of that stuff. They'd wear their National League or American League uniforms. And then for the All-Star game, the home team would wear their home team uniforms and the road team would wear their road team uniforms. And so you had a guy in a Red Sox uniform pitching to a guy in a Pirates uniform, and, and with the guy in a Yankees uniform playing shortstop. And, that's what the All-Star game has always been. And it's really silly. I guess it's a money thing. I can't even figure out, are people really buying are people going out and buying a Shohei Ohtani National League All-Star Game jersey, or are they gonna seems like you'd rather have his team jersey, especially if you have one with the All-Star patch on it. I don't know
You do see a lot of All-Star jerseys out there.
Do you? Okay. I wouldn't buy one, but I recognize there are people other than me in the world, unfortunately. No, I like all of you. But I feel like that's something that has really caused the All-Star game to lose some of its luster. Some of the fun was seeing all the guys in their own uniforms playing. For me, that's something I miss. And so, hopefully, as long as they're fixing uniform mistakes, they should fix that, because you could still, like I said, you still have those jerseys. So, you could still have the American League jersey that Vlad Guerrero wore to win the home run derby. Go buy that if you love Vlad Guerrero and you want to celebrate that home run derby. Guys are wearing those jerseys on the workout day. I don't know. Seems like a couple unforced errors uniform wise, and good news is they are apparently going to fix at least the biggest one this year. And, whether they get it fixed this season or if it's just a next season thing, seems to me like it might be easy enough to say, hey, all those stuff that we put in the closet when we got these new jerseys, why don't we pull those out of the closet? And, okay, it takes a little effort because you would have to make an Ohtani. Although even there was off-season stuff when Ohtani signed, I think he was wearing the old style uniform. So, I mean, it's easy enough. Those uniforms are available. So let's make that happen sooner than later and just kind of put this unfortunate incident behind us.
Yeah. On that note, real quick, we know the Dodgers are getting a second City Connect uniform later this year. The Rays just dropped theirs. Probably, at least in what I've seen, one of the most positive feedbacks I've seen from a City Connect drop.
Yeah, my opinion was much more muted. Like, I thought, okay, I don't hate it, but it seems like there's been a lot of the same kind of, it looks more like a Players Weekend concept or like the 2019 Bad Players Weekend concept, of that really dark. I think there's some really cool elements that they use, but I don't necessarily care much for the dark, and it's like dark on dark, so you can't even see all the elements really well, because they, it might just be, I don't know, I hope the Dodgers don't do a dark gray, because seems like there's been a few too many of those for City Connect jerseys or uniforms. I hope they do something maybe not as bright as the Padres, but something a little more colorful than that.
Yeah. So, I really have no idea what they're going to do for the Dodger ones, but I think they're the last ones to get unveiled. So it won't be till late June, I believe, when we finally see the Dodger ones. So we'll see what happens. But you got anything else, Jeff?
Nope. Hopefully Dodgers can win this series and finish off a really good road trip.
Yeah, no early Wednesday game this time. It'll be a normal for Arizona 6:40 start time. So make sure to tune in to us after that, and we'll be up and ready to go. So thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us where we get podcasts and on YouTube. Make sure to become an everydayer by listening or watching every day. Make sure to tell your friends and family and any Dodger fans in your life about Locked On Dodgers. We're here for you every Monday through Friday for about 30 minutes. You can become an everydayer by listening, watching every day. You can go beyond the podcast, become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. You can listen to 24/7 streaming channels, Locked On, or watch Locked On Sports Today, Locked On Sports Los Angeles on YouTube. They're from the Locked On Podcast Network. You can find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vincent91. You can DM us with any questions or comments. You can also send those via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car, if you're at home, tell your smart device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.